Hello, welcome to another episode of A Better Lived Life. So, today, let's discuss shopping, specifically grocery shopping, without blowing your budget or your diet with ADHD. So, to begin, a lot of this you're going to have heard before. It's pretty common advice, but I want you to understand why it matters with ADHD. So, first and foremost, make a list. They got those grocery shopping lists. You can stick them right on your fridge. Then you can write things as you go. I prefer to just use my cell phone. As soon as I know I'm out of something, I put it on there. However, even when I use a written list, I take pictures of it as I go every so often, because this way when I finally go to the store, I don't have to worry about whether or not I remembered to grab the list. Going to the grocery store and not having your list, you'll end up not getting what you need, and you'll end up getting things you definitely did not. So having that grocery list. Now that could be just the things you know you need because of generic reasons, or you could be doing meal prep, meal planning, but we'll discuss those in another episode. But just knowing at least the basics of what you need to save yourself some money, to save yourself from going down aisles, to save yourself from the stress of not having what you need later in the week. Okay, next up, eat before you shop. Eat before you shop, okay? When you go into the grocery store, you do not want to be hungry. If you are hungry, you will overshop. This has been studied over and over and over again. Personally, I tend to keep like a granola bar or something in my glove box. It's just there. So if I randomly decide to go to the grocery store after work that day, there is a granola bar in the glove box. I can eat that, get my blood sugar up, and cut down on the impulse spending. If you know you are going to the grocery store from home, eat before you go. Just grab yourself a banana, eat a snack, have some leftovers, anything that gets you where your blood sugar needs to be to control impulses. Okay. Next, shop when your time is limited. If you have time for browsing, you're probably going to browse. So going when you have another appointment at a certain time, or on your way home knowing that you have something else you need to get done at a certain time. Trying to keep the amount of time you can spend in the store limited. Yes, it is a little more stressful because if the lines are longer than you expect, there's other issues, but that limited time will keep you from going, oh, let me just look over here. Oh, let me just do this. Instead, you'll just stick to that list. You'll get what you need and be on your way because you've got a deadline. Deadlines are your friend with ADHD. Another option, if you don't have a deadline, is a timer. How quick can you get through the store? Turn it into a game. What is the fastest you can get through these 10 items? Get in, get out. Next option, phone a friend. Seriously, phone a friend. Now, this is not the time to call that friend that's going to be like, oh, pick up the extra chips. Oh, but somebody who's maybe on the same financial or health journey that you are. So you could be on the phone with them and you could be like, oh, tell me I don't need any donuts today. And, if they're a good friend, they'll be like, you don't need the donuts. I have one friend who she'll be like, they taste like sawdust. You don't need the donuts. And we both know she's lying, but it helps. It helps. Helps hold me accountable, helps me make better choices. So, phone a friend. Next up, pick the right store. Now, what does this mean? I'm not saying pick the best store for the items you need, like you have to get the best spices, stuff like that. No, what I'm saying is just because a store might be cheaper doesn't necessarily mean it's the right store for you. For example, Walmart sells a lot of cheap groceries, but if every time you go in, you're also walking out with $20 in non-groceries, that $5 or $10 you're saving, you're not saving. You're just accumulating more stuff you don't need. If you tend to hold off on grocery shopping because you like a specific health food store, but then you run out of food because you don't have groceries, maybe you need to switch to the more local store, even though they don't have as many organic options, simply because the stuff you make yourself is still going to be better for you than all that takeout, and it's going to be cheaper than all that takeout. So both sticking to, again, to a healthier diet and your finances, it's more important to have the food in your fridge, even if it's not the organic version. And don't get me wrong, I eat like 90% organic in the groceries I buy. So if I can do it, great. But being honest with yourself. Well, if I don't go get these groceries, my option is takeout. Takeout is definitely not healthier than the non-organic that you could pick up on the way home. It's just not. So being realistic, picking the right store. Next, limit your decision making. Seriously. If you are walking into the store, the fewer decisions you have to make, the better you will make them. So having that list is the first one. You know what you need to get. Fewer decisions. Next, don't go down aisles you don't need something from. Because if you walk those aisles just to see, well, even if you have the willpower and you don't get anything, you've still burned that willpower. You won't have it for something else you need later in the day, or even a few aisles over when you see that other thing and you're like, oh, well, I didn't get those other ones, or you're just tired at this point because you've made so many decisions. So you grab the bag of junk. So limit your decisions. If you don't need to go down that aisle, don't go down that aisle. Just don't. Next up, only need a few small things. Don't grab a grocery cart. Make it uncomfortable. Instead, if it's just 2 things, you're just running in because you need 2 little things and you can carry them in your 2 little hands, don't get anything. This way, the most you can impulse buy is what you can carry in your arms. That's it. You can't impulse buy more than that. If you know you need a handful of things and it's going to be just a little more than you can carry, grab the little basket instead. It's more uncomfortable. You're going to be carrying it. You're not going to want that thing to get too heavy, so you're going to get what you said you needed. Maybe you'll get 1 or 2 extra items, but that basket limits your space, and the weight limits your willpower to keep shopping. Next, with ADHD, we know we will sometimes still impulse buy. So, set your ground rules. Set your ground rules for your impulse shopping. This could be things like every time I do the mass grocery shopping, which is once or twice a week, I can get 1 or 2 impulse items. It could be something like that. Mine is it must be healthy, like very healthy, or cheap. So, for me, the practical implications of this are I'm walking down the aisle, I see something that looks really interesting. I take a look at it. Does it seem super healthy? Well, then maybe I'll give it a try. However, I don't even go down the junk food aisle because there is nothing there that is going to be healthy or cheap. That said, the clearance section. That is my kryptonite, and it is also where I can impulse buy safely. I can go in there, and a lot of the times, you're looking at the junk food, you're looking at the day-old donuts, you're looking at that sort of thing, and I can look through them, and I can see, what do I really like? What do I think might be a novelty to try this time? And is it cheap enough to meet the qualifications of being cheap? Because a lot of times the stuff in the clearance section is not actually cheap. It's marked down like 10%, 20%. It's not cheap. But if I can get an entire sponge cake for $1, I might be going home with a sponge cake. This is also, like I said, how I can get my novelty items. I have tried, I think they were raspberry pop rock cookies. It's not something I will ever buy again, but they were in the clearance section and they were cheap and I was fascinated. So I went home with these cookies. It was an interesting experiment. I got my novelty and I didn't blow the bank. So, my rule, very healthy or very cheap. Your rule could be one or two items. It could be a dollar amount. It could be, again, so one of the things you'll hear over and over from me is it just has to make sense to you. That's it. Just makes sense to you. So there's my tips for today. We discussed how not to blow the bank or your diet while grocery shopping with ADHD. So make a list. This could be on a cell phone or a sheet of paper. Either way. Eat before shopping. Please eat before shopping. Shop with a time limit or set a timer. Phone a friend. Limit your decision making by not going down aisles, by having your list, by just avoiding things you know you don't need to be going near. Only getting a few things. Carry them in your arms. Limit the space. Limit what you can impulse buy physically. Next, set boundaries. What are your rules for your impulse buying? You know you're going to be impulse buy sometimes. We do. ADHD. If you never, ever, 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 ever impulse buy, got one of two options. You aren't the one doing the shopping in your family, which is another option. Or you don't actually have ADHD. I'm sorry. Impulse buying is like one of the most obvious things. So, to avoid the impulse buying, consider these options. Try implementing just one or two and see how it works out for you. And I wish you all the best in this amazing, better lived life. Now, go forth and do great things. Love y'all.